Hi, everyone. Carl Steinbeck here. I'm in New York City here. Decided to do a live stream. And New York City, if you've seen my show before, New York City has the number one followers of the Justice for Dan Markell effort. And so I happen to be here this week, so I thought it'd be a good time to jump on, see a few things. I've heard a few chatters out there talking about how Donna Adelson will have a cleaner defense than her son Charlie did. Of course, she has the same attorney, Daniel Roshbaum, as Charlie Adelson, her son, did. And we all probably know how that turned out. If you're not following it, he got convicted of all charges for murdering his ex-brother-in-law, Professor Daniel Markell. So what we have now coming up here in September, the middle end of September, we have Donna Adelson on trial. She's 73 some years old. And she also had an instrumental key part in the murder of Dan Markell. And so when I'm hearing these other folks on the YouTube talking about how she's going to be able to come across in a different way or have a better presentation or maybe be able to create some daylight between her and the bad acts that Charlie did, I'm just telling you from my experience as a trial attorney, the kind of evidence that I see against Donna is the kind that you cannot recreate her and create a new version of herself. You cannot polish up her personality. You cannot change her character. And so the difference being you have her on recordings with wiretaps, with FBI's that is so damning against her case because we really see how she acts when she's cornered in this whole issue about is it the police or not having to do with the murder of Dan Markell. Because I really hope the prosecution this go around really focuses on the fact that they were scared that this was the police doing the bump. So Donna got bumped in the March timeframe of 2016, and immediately thereafter the wiretaps commenced for a 2-week period. And during that 2-week period, there's a lot of conversations with Charlie and also Donna. And Donna was trying to solve this matter with Charlie. They're trying to figure it out. And Charlie kept on saying it's not done that way. He kept on saying it's not done that way. And he wasn't talking about Latin Kings or any criminal element. He's talking about law enforcement. So if he was under this supposed robbery, which he calls extortion, efforts against him that had been ongoing for about 2 years at that point, I've already said before it'd be so obvious that he would have called the police right away. The whole thing would have been solved. He knew who the folks were that murdered Dan Markell, and the whole case could have been opened and closed in a matter of hours or days. But what does he do? He does the absolute worst thing you could do if you really were, let's say it's so-called robbery. Then the worst thing you do is not call the police. And nobody that has his level of contact with people in high-level society would not call the police. It's utterly ridiculous. It's completely fabricated. And any jury in Tallahassee or anywhere else in America, for that matter, is going to see right through it. So that alone is a bridge that they cannot get over, and it's not going to make any sense. They're acting like guilty parties, and that carries a huge factor for people looking at everything they did with the really cynicism and skepticism, because they're not acting in any way, shape, or form like innocent people. And so when you also combine the fact that Donna Adelson said on the wiretap, it's about you and me, when Charlie's trying to say, what was this? Who gave you this piece of paper? What was it about? She says it has to do with you and me. So that's something as a prosecutor, you're going to see them really hitting home that point that she's conceding Charlie, he's already convicted of murder. It's about something they had done. So these two data points are absolutely critical to defeat any kind of notion that they're going to have her coming across as some kind of sweet old grandmother lady that likes to bake cookies for her grandsons and even bake the banana bread cake for Dan Markell because she's that loving and kind. So none of that's going to pan out at real trial. And so I just wanted to reassure folks that it's all going to be smoke and mirrors, and it's all going to come crashing in. So this 2.0 version is going to be more of the same, and it's going to be boring as all get out. It's going to be laughable, and it's going to be basically suspended reality and complete delusions of how people really think and act. And then you also think about the TV code thing. Donna was integral in that. It looks like she was the one that made the appointment for the TV code, and the TV code itself was like the alibi for Wendy. So they're all wrapped around the axle on that point as well. So the more you can show all these folks acting in concert, and that's why the family dynamics I've said are very key to this case and going after these other Adelsons. It's the more you go after another Adelson, the more the family dynamics are key to present as a prosecutor. So what we had before, we didn't get in a whole lot of family dynamics with Charlie, but now it's really important more Donna. And so I think you're going to hear more. That's why they are putting the other son, Rob Adelson, the honorable doctor from, I think it's New York area. That's why he's on the witness list as well, because he's going to talk about how strange they were acting after the murder of Dan Markell. And he could also talk about other history that that was surrounding him and his life, and how Donna basically browbeat him and wouldn't let him choose his mate for life and that kind of stuff, and caused a real gap in their relationship. And then eventually, when he got that ironed out to do what he thought was best for him, then this issue came up, and so he basically went cold turkey with any contact with them. So that's something that's very, very revealing. He can talk about how Donna's control of and micromanaging everything. And if you bring those kind of family dynamics into play in the courtroom, it's another thing to just show that this is not something that Charlie did in isolation, but rather it was a family concerted effort, minus, of course, the honorable doctor in the Northeast. It was the Florida Adelsons that put this plan together, and that they all should be convicted for this. So what we also have, keep in mind, this was not hit on enough, is that the when you think about the criminal element, they don't have the ability to wiretap phone calls. So this whole issue on the wiretap, why they're talking in code, why they couldn't talk openly about what was going on. The reason why they couldn't do that is because they likely knew it had to been law enforcement and probably listening in. So Charlie had that sense of alertness about him, and even Donna did, if you stop to think about it. So Donna actually was more alert and keen on that aspect than Charlie even was. So Charlie was the one that kept on, trying to dig it out of his mom. What was this bump thing about? She wouldn't describe it as a bump. She just said somebody gave her a piece of paper with a note on it. And then she's talking TV code for 5. I mean, talking in code like that, excuse me, that's something that's so critical for the prosecution to bring out. And if you recall, it was not brought up enough by Georgia. Georgia let that slide when Charlie said, "Oh, it's a bad word choice for mom." No, it was more. It wasn't just a bad word choice. She mentioned it more than once, and then she attached the letter 5 to it, which has to do with $5,000, which is what the agents were asking for, $5,000 as the form of the demand for the hush money, if you will. So I think when you take these things in concert, the totality of them are going to be so overwhelming. It doesn't matter how how Donna comes across. Same thing for Wendy, though. So I would say that it's not something you can repackage. No new lawyer on the case, including Alex Morris, is going to be able to repackage this in a way that jury's not going to see right through this. And so it doesn't matter if it's in Tallahassee, doesn't matter where it's at in the United States. From my experience, juries can see right through this. You're going to see the smoke and mirrors. And they're going to totally see that Donna was 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, 100% involved in this murder as well. So I would say that it's going to be very much a 2.0 version of Charlie's. I don't think they're going to deviate much from what Charlie presented. And it's actually a really good trial strategy for Georgia to call Charlie as a witness, because in case they try going off the reservation, keep in mind Charlie's the one that said that this extortion, the term that he uses, which it doesn't even meet the definition of extortion, because you're only extorted for something you actually did. And so if he says he didn't do anything at all, the only thing he supposedly made a joke, that's nothing that would meet the element of an extortion. So really what it equates to is more of a robbery type thing, a robbery on a payment plan, which is so preposterous. So hopefully Georgia will call it out for what it is. It doesn't even meet the definition of extortion. It just sounds more elaborate and scary of a word kind of thing. So hopefully they'll blow that out of the water. And what we have then also is the aspect of Charlie looking at looking at testifying in his jail suit. He's probably going to have Leon County Jail, not the prison garb from South Dakota prison. So having him testify in a jail suit about this kind of thing is going to prevent Donna's defense counsel from throwing up some kind of weird thing and maybe pointing the finger at Charlie. And the fact that Charlie said this was a secret between him and his mom, that's also another thing. Nobody's going to believe that. You mean to tell me that Charlie knew who the hitman was, told his mom within days of the murder of Dan Markell, and just those two kept it from everybody, Harvey included, her husband, and she could sleep at night and Harvey couldn't tell what the heck was going on. Something's, these killers are now in their neighborhood, in their county, and you're going to sleep at night and not tell anything about it. So put Harvey on that witness list, because like I say, the more Adelsons you have testify of the Florida type, the better things to turn out for the prosecutor, because they're sort of like in a circular firing squad. We've already seen that the way Wendy's acting towards Donna. Wendy's not gone up to see her dad at all, her mom at all, and she doesn't have that much contact with her dad if she's ready to go to fly the coop and go to Texas. And then what about Charlie? She's completely ghosted him. So that these circular firing has already taken effect. Charlie's not talked to her since he got arrested, and she's only seen him since he's been in the courtroom there facing his murder trial. And then Donna, she's got to be beside herself. The fact that now she can't talk to Charlie anymore, who she had multiple times a day, lengthy conversations. Now she can't talk to Donna either. And she did have some of those notes about Donna being, coming across as not guilty either, but she also had a good lawyer to prevent her being in the same category as a convicted felon for murder like Charlie was. So that's something that supposedly came out new this week in some of the text messages. But so what we have really is this whole thing is imploding on their head. They're going to come across angry at each other. They don't have a unified defense here, and so imagine Wendy coming across on the witness stand the way she has, and the emotions she's going to have or not have with regard to her mother. And then you're going to have Charlie also in there coming across like he does, which is not likable at all. So basically all this non-likability, nobody on the jury would ever like Wendy, from my experience. Same thing with Charlie. And the way Donna's going to conduct herself, juries are not going to like that either. So you basically have all these family dynamics of people that have no likability factor at all. And that's something that's very critical for me. I always say you better hire a lawyer that has some likability factor to the jury, because if you don't have that, you're starting off in a negative sum game. And then you got to make sure your client has some likability stuff as well. And like I say, you can normally work on that kind of stuff, and I can practice with my clients and have them come across better. I remember when I had practiced over and over again in front of a camcorder. This is back in the 90s. And he went from really bad to actually pretty good. It was not a matter of coaching him how to lie or anything. It was a matter of just how do you come across, because he was too flippant about in his answers and too quick to answer questions. So when I would act like a prosecutor and ask him some incriminating questions, he'd right away agree with me. So anyway, some people like that just don't have the mental flexibility to understand, is this a trick question? Is it a setup question or not? And so I through that kind of practice, I got him to understand that, okay, you gotta think of the question, think of the words, and don't right away blurt out a response that could actually destroy you on your case. So in any event, those are the kind of things that you can do as a either as a prosecutor, defense attorney, work with clients that way or witnesses. But here in this kind of case, I mean, when you don't have, from what we've seen in Charlie, you don't even have Charlie's attorneys telling him that he's going to do bad. I mean, they're saying basically under a score system, you scored a 70, you're going home that night. That's something I would tell you that lawyers do not do that. From what I've ever seen, they always prepare their clients for the worst and hope for the best. So if we're to believe what Charlie said, he was told basically he won the case already. He's going home. And I've just never heard anything like that. So if yes, I do have a cold. I'm fighting it here. There's so much hot and cold going in and out of things here at New York City. So unfortunately, I'm fighting this cold, but so my voice is a little bit different. I apologize. But anyway, so yeah, it is an issue here where they're not going to be able to repackage this thing. And Charlie, he's going to come across so bad that I would say that It's just going to do wonders for the prosecution. So I look forward to them actually calling him, and hopefully, hopefully they do that. Did I just sign off? All right, hold on. The screen just went away. Okay, we're still there. All right, so with that, that's pretty much all I'm going to say for right now. And we got 15 minutes in. So if you do have questions, I'm going to go ahead and start below. I do see one here they asked about Rob Adelson, though. I can scroll back up. No, I can't scroll back up. You asked if Rob Adelson will testify. You know, he was on the witness list last time, so I really think he should be on this time as well, because the family dynamics is really important to show the amount of degree of control Donna has over the relationships of her different children. Keep in mind with Dan Markell, she's the one that found Dan Markell and suggested Wendy go out with him and whatnot. And she was the one that was very involved in the wedding and not having a kosher food, and just a lot of really, really terrible dynamics of things going on that were very, very upsetting for not only Dan, but for Markells as well. Just a lot of disrespectful stuff. And and she also said she never married for love. So that's something that was not brought out in the previous trial as well. And so I hope they bring that out as well. And they need to bring more about her book as well. Her book is very damning. And even though Wendy's not on trial this go around, even though it's Donna, because they're all acting as co-conspirators, a lot of that stuff should pan out as well and paint the big picture of how this criminal crime family of Florida decided to take out the Honorable Professor Dan Markell. All right, so Deborah is asking, do I think all the smiling from Donna in this last court proceeding was to try to rehabilitate her persona? And might the judge actually let a smaller court be used to eliminate the people? Yeah, I don't think that. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think that they're trying to make it look like she's happy and not a care in the world and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff she can do. But is that you can also say that the jury's going to see through that, and they expect a juror. They expect somebody facing murder charges to act a certain way. If she's acting all smiley and giddy, that's going to go over really bad. So no matter what she does, no matter what, they're going to be able to read through that she's putting on a front. And so no matter what she does, it's going to come across bad. If she acts her natural self, which is really hatred for the Markells, and that's something I'd be really bringing up, is the hatred of the Markells and also the denial of visitation. She was absolutely instrumental in that. And so, and I do think she's going to testify. And so they need to ask her all those kind of probing questions. The request to go into a smaller courtroom, I know you guys are at some. I've seen a bunch of questions on that. From my perspective, that's really like that's something that's more along the lines of you want to have limited exposure as possible when you got a loser of a case. Think about it, these attorneys, they don't want to have as much media there. You also have the factor of the people in the spectators section of the courtroom. They can also have their own vibe or energy, if you will, and they can also be like laughing and snickering, like say if Charlie's up there testifying or something like that. And I don't think that went on for many of the times that I saw and heard about what was going on there for Charlie's trial. But the more people you got, the more it's going to be like sort of like a lot of people siding with justice for Markell folks. And from what I had seen up there when I was there with my brother John, there was really not anybody that we recognize as there to support Charlie. So Charlie didn't have Wendy. Wendy, after she got excused as a witness, she could have sat in the courtroom and showed support for her brother. Where was Donna and Harvey? I mean, they completely abandoned him. That's how bizarre this whole case is. So anyway, I do think the judge is going to keep in the bigger courtroom, because this case will keep growing bigger and bigger. There will be more and more people following it. Tallahassee needs to there's so many people in Tallahassee still don't know about this miscarriage of justice going there for so long. Most of Florida doesn't even know about it. Most of Miami, the vast 99% of Miami folks don't even know you got killers walking around down there and getting away with this for a decade. So that's why we need the bigger courtroom, and I think the judge would do the right thing. Tanya's saying the book was a further smear campaign at Dan. She was too cocky to consider it could be used against her. Yeah, I do think that it definitely was. It was full of venom and hatred towards Dan. It was her chance of payback. It was written what 2012, so at least a year before she divorced him, and at least 2 years before the custody battles happened. But I mean, it's so much reflective of her. And think about what she said in court. She wrote the book after a friend of hers, and yet in the book acknowledgement, she actually said the book was based on her. So I mean, it's another lie. I mean, you could just, I mean, almost every word out of her mouth, the prosecutor could show as a lie. So it's just, you can't make this stuff up. You can't imagine people with their kind of background. They got all this money, all their degrees, that they've come across as such terrible, terrible, people that resort to violence like this, and then think nothing of it, and they think they can come to court and just lie, 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 and jury's going to believe them, and so yeah, I guess she can come down crashing down to earth like Charlie does when she gets the verdict of guilty. So keep in mind also, I don't think I've ever said this before, but the I can automatically tell if a defendant really thinks they're guilty or not by the way they act after the verdict's announced. And the way Charlie dropped his head like that, that's never a sign that the person thought they were innocent. Okay. So his true beliefs about himself are always revealed at that moment. And so nobody would be doing that. His jaw would be dropping. He'd be looking at his attorney. He's like, what the heck's going on? He'd be so mad and outraged. And so no, he just dropped his head like, oh man, all this money, I should have fled. Why didn't I leave? It's all these doubts about why didn't I outsmart these people? And it was all a waste, and now I'm locked up for life. So he got busted in the jaw, and he's reeling from it. So it's totally a sign of him being guilty. I think Donna's defiant. She has more of a defiant streak about her. So I think she would be probably the type to just get angry and lash out. And so I don't think she's going to drop her head. I think she's going to act. She's going to lash out in some way or form, but not like an innocent person. Don't get me wrong on that. So she's just going to be mad at the system that all this money was spent for nothing. And anyway. Okay, so Jonah saying Wendy's alibi for the first murder attempt a month earlier, maybe also TV repair appointment should be checked. Yeah, Wendy, I think it was more like Jeff Lacoste was going out of town in the first murder attempt, the 4 to 6 June window. So I think she was supposed to stay in town. It was Jeff Lacoste that was leaving. So it made it look like he was the one that was trying to flee town after the murder happened. So it looked like he was fleeing to escape suspicion. Also, the TV repair appointment, that's definitely a code for the murder. And that's how Wendy's involved in that. There's a separate YouTube clip we put up on that some months back that definitely shows Wendy was totally wrapped around the TV code part of it as well. Let me see if I can scroll down here. So let me really scroll down 832. Okay, we're here. Yeah, for those of you that's joined, I'm in New York City. Over my left shoulder right here, that's Statue of Liberty. You can see on a little island there. It's too small in the background to see. But I'm here in South Central Manhattan right now. So yeah, Tanya, that's what I said. The first murder attempt was also when Jeff Lacoste was going out of town. That's what I'm saying. They try to orchestrate this stuff really, really, really like they thought they could outslick the system, right? They thought they were so sophisticated and elegant how they'd pull this off. They'd never be caught. Okay, so Hula Joe's asking, do you think Wendy was probably flirting with the TV repair guy to keep him there so long? I think that she was probably doing anything and everything it took, because for him to be there 45 minutes on something that was not worth fixing. And remember, she also, I think 18 of the minutes, or she was talking to Charlie, so she probably told him, "Don't leave. You got to stay here." Well, I talked to my brother, so he already said it couldn't be repaired. So why would she talk to his brother to talk about should it be repaired or not? So I mean, none of this stuff makes any sense. They just have these glib answers and expect people to not even think about it. But I think the prosecutors really pulling out the microscope now, unlike they've ever done before, getting into these nitty gritty details. From my experience, prosecutors tend to just sort of gloss over the big major facts and not over so many little details. And that's how they tend to lose cases, from my experience. Same with defense attorneys; they may have a good case to win, but if they don't really dig up the details and um, try to pick apart every little piece of evidence and really study it and reflect on it, then they're just going to basically be in a position where they could actually lose a case that's winnable. Well, Wendy wanted the Geek Squad guy there at her house because the longer he's there, the more it's an alibi. At least in her mind, she thought it was an alibi. Now, he could have been there for 3 hours. What difference does it make if she goes to the crime scene to do a crime scene inspection less than hour and 20 minutes or so after Dan Markel was murdered in his garage? So she just couldn't help herself, as Georgia said. Ocean Girl, you're saying you suspect that each of the Florida Adelsons had often lied through their lives and have to some extent gotten away with it. My thoughts. Well, I just think for any kind of criminal case I'm looking at like this, these people don't manufacture this kind of hatred, this kind of like outright heinous evil act without having a lot of stuff in their built in their character over their whole lifetime. So they don't suddenly become evil, want to kill people. So there is a lot of I would say darkness and evil lurking about. And I think also the political connections. I think if they wouldn't have done this if they didn't feel like they had the political clout to pull it off. I think they were not that. I don't think they were that stupid to go ahead and pull this off if they didn't think they had all the connections to be able to keep folks like Willie Meggs in abeyance. Why does Georgia harp on Wendy getting sick at the celebration dinner? Says Lawn Lit 82.7. Well, I think it's not as a matter so much that she's harping on. I think she's just bringing up a point that that in and of itself we have a discrepancy on. Charlie said she threw up in the bathroom. She said she threw up at the table. Does she really not eat for a couple weeks after the murder because she's that upset? Ask yourself, when you look at the video of her interview with Isom, does she look like the kind of person that's so upset, her guts churning, that she can't even have any desires to eat food? Heck no. She's laughing, yucking it up with her friend Jane, as if nothing happened. So, and then she's going to go on to say, "Oh, I couldn't eat for 2 weeks." So, yeah, I mean, just like the fake tears, she did the fake tears at the beginning of the interview. So she can turn it on and off depending who the audience is. And I would say that kind of stuff, it doesn't, all that kind of behavior did not just suddenly happen because they decided to kill Dan Markel. That kind of stuff was like, it's ingrained in your personality. So what the prosecutor needs to do is drive these points home of how they're all acting in concert. They're all pulling this thing together. They all acted as a team. And I think that, they're going to have I know that she's going to get convicted. There's no doubt in my mind. And, and they're going to then have the even stronger confidence to then go after the next one, which is going to be Wendy. So they realize they cannot give up this effort. I think they absolutely realize that they messed up by letting this thing drag out for so long. And I think, part of it, I understand from a political standpoint. I hate politics, but I think on the other side of it, I understand that's how it works with people getting, groomed to be a replacement. So Willie Meggs picked his replacement and Jack Campbell, and he sort of had a total line with Jack Campbell, even though Jack Campbell, with Willie Meggs, even though Willie Meggs went off to retirement. he still owed him that favor. So I think going hard charging against Adelson's was not something that he was really ready, willing, and able to do at that point. But as time went on, think about the fact it took 6 years to get the Dolce Vita enhancement. That alone I've been critical of, because number one, we saw how overwhelming a slam dunk trial it was. They didn't need that evidence to convict Charlie. Now, granted, you want to have the best evidence to go forward on any case, but taking 6 years that long to go after it, it does really, it's really baffling. So anyway, the bottom line is we get the pressure now that's been mounting through social media, and also the international media and the national media, the mainstream media, all that kind of stuff is helping spur the momentum for justice for not only Dan Markel but also the family members. And I do think the thing that's really going to sink Donna too is this visitation and the lies about it. I mean, think about it. That visitation was a big issue that was brought out at Charlie's trial. What's Charlie got to do with visitation, right? Was it Charlie really giving that much of a rip about visitation of the two boys? No, he really doesn't. But why was it relevant? It was to show that was part of the motive, because Donna wanted her sunshines, as she called them, down there with her. And you think about all the wiretap calls and stuff like that. She's always the one around them, her and Harvey. Never once do you hear Wendy around the kids. So that really, they need to bring all that stuff out. Anytime the boys in the background, I know some of the channel content creators erase over the boys' voices in the background. So that's a cool thing. But I think at trial, you want to have the boys' voices come out. I think it'd be beneficial to show that this was really Donna's baby. She was the one also wanted these boys down there for her own use and enjoyment. And, their father be damned, and they could care less about him. And I'm telling you, that hatred, the hatred of the Markels, not just Dan, but extends to the Markels, it's so undeserving, so absolutely mind-boggling. That too will be loud and clear, front and center in this courtroom as well, and that's going to help bring about a speedy conviction. All right, that's another thing. The flea attempt, that is very damning as well against Donna. So that's another thing that's going to stick a nail in her coffin and get her convicted. So, D, you're asking what would happen if Wendy or Harvey attempt to leave the country. Well, if there's not a warrant for their arrest, then they can leave the country anytime they want. So, what they did in Donna's case is they rushed through and got an indictment, and that's how they were able to apprehend at the airport. So, hopefully, they're not sitting on it and letting Wendy get these ideas to leave the country as soon as mom gets convicted. So, I think they learned their lesson. Katrina, you're asking if, as a prosecutor in Georgia's position, do I try to build testimony in the current trial for use in the next? Well, I think it all depends what the issue is. I can sort of like, I say as any kind of trial attorney you are, where your prosecution defense, you always think what's the second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. order of effects of what anything you say and do. So I'm not thinking, when I ask a question, I'm not thinking of like just what is that answer. I'm thinking also the implications. I'm thinking what's the effect on that witness? How is the jury going to think about it? How's it going to come across? There's so many things that I'm taking into focus that, and sometimes I am trying to build up something. But what I'm normally trying to do is build up the witness to set him up as a liar. So I do a lot of circular questioning. I do a lot of things that rattle them if I know they're lying. Now, if they're telling the truth, like if you got a Jeff Lacasse, there's no way you're going to rattle that guy. I mean, that guy's impeccable. He's ironclad. They're not going to be able to pin him down on anything. And anyway, it's the liars that have to worry about the last lie they told, and there's a series of lies. And if you have somebody that knows the truth and then can question them on the lies, that's what really makes trial work exciting, when you see the lies actually crumbling right before the jury's eyes. So that's what I think we'll see more of in this case. And I think Donna's not going to do as well as Charlie thought he did, and as some of the people were worried about afterwards. Think about it. There's a lot of people that thought this could be a hung jury, and I was just like, wow, that's like so far off reality. So in any event, all right, let's see what else we got here. All right, Charlie, you're saying here, if Dan read Wendy's book, How did he not realize how miserable Wendy was in Tallahassee and what a bad state of marriage it was in? Well, I think that was totally something that he was picking up on, because he did try to go to counseling with Wendy. He wanted to stick it out. He didn't want to be divorced, even if she was upset and if she wanted to bail on it. He was like the kind of guy, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and the family intact. So, he had good faith intentions in that, and she didn't, from what it looks like. So, um, I'm sure that's not the only thing that they had in conversations. Oh, here, by the way, read this book. You're going to find out for the first time how I really feel about you. So no, I think she probably had those conversations way before that, and so that wasn't really so much a surprise. It's probably more like can you imagine being publicly embarrassed like that? And then he's having to like promote the book as well. It really made me feel sorry for him when I read about how he promoted the book. And remember, she mentioned the acknowledgement. This book is based in large part on her life, or however the words she used to describe that. So, which means, there's too many simulators. Northern Florida State University, married to a professor, came from Ivy League, stuck in this Hiawassee Springs rat hole of a town in Florida swamps and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's really what she thought of Florida State area and the university and the town of Tallahassee. So I think that's another thing the jury's not going to miss out on, thinking, wow, she thinks this is like scum of the earth type of place to live, and you think you're high society in Miami. So and the same thing's going to go for Donna. Donna's going to be looked at that way. So yeah, it's all this stuff's coming back to bite them. Dixie Doodles, you're just making a comment. Yeah, but let me jump in on this. You're saying Patty's Playhouse drove Wendy's route. It gives great perspective on how out of the way she went in a few other key locations. I have not seen that from that channel, but I can tell you that John and I drove it, and I saw that even before I just looking at the map and seeing, I think, from some other YouTube channel. And that's before I actually went down there and looked at the end of the trial for Charlie. But I can tell you that when you drive it and you see how slow of a road it is to go on. You got speed bumps, all these trees and bushes. You only got a sidewalk on one side of the road. It's a narrow sidewalk. You can't go fast because you feel like there could be kids running out behind the bushes at any moment, chasing a ball or whatnot. And so I will really be disappointed if the prosecution does not have the jury drive the routes that they talked about. That's how important I think it is. I mean, just like Murdo, they took Murdo out, the jury for the Murdo case in South Carolina. They took the jury out to look at the scene. Very critical in a case like this, because here you got her reasoning for going by the house, and she calls it a shortcut to Isom. We never called her out on it. So anyway, I think it's a huge benefit for the jury to see that, and I hope the prosecution doesn't drop the ball on that. All right, so Willa Joe is asking, have I heard that Adelson had a storage unit? Mentor lawyer said the calendar notes for Donna in 2023 calendar had for moving something there. It could be other records like a 2024 calendar. Excuse me. I'm not tracking that, but most people do have storage units, it seems like. So it doesn't mean anything nefarious was going on necessarily. So I don't know where the unit was at, but in any event, I don't really have a comment on that. But I'd be curious to see if they actually tried to search the unit out and if they still got it. But they didn't do any kind of search warrant on it, so I don't think we're going to find any evidence of value there if we don't make an attempt to search it. Okay, so moving on here, we have yeah, that's a good point. Brady Starr is saying, ironically, they thought they could erase Dan Markell and his family's name from existence, but the opposite has happened. So many are demanding justice for Dan Markell. My prayer is Dan's sons get their birth names. Yeah, that's really something that is needed, isn't it, for them to have the original names rightfully restored. Even on the court form that was filled out by Wendy, she checked the box and said she's restoring the boy's name back to original name. So Um, Again, I would bring that out of court. Hopefully that's brought out. That's not been brought out in any trial whatsoever. And I think the name change thing is such a huge thing to bring out that that has been missed, and hopefully they won't drop it from being presented this go around. All right, let's see here. Okay, get them is you're asking, is it true that Charlie asked Katie about roughing someone up on October 31st, the same day that they became aware of Dan's recent motions? Um, I don't know if that was the date of the motions necessarily. I think that was the date that Katie canceled the deal on her house. I think she was under contract with the house up in Tallahassee, and I think that was a pressure that Donna applied on Charlie to hurry up and get this thing resolved, to get some hitmen in place so that they could convince Wendy that there was light at the end of the tunnel, that she'd be able to leave Florida. Okay, Rabbit saying, are you aware that today, July 26th, is a 10-year Jewish Yarzite, if you say it the right way, I don't know, anniversary of passing on the Hebrew calendar? No, I'm not tracking that at all. Justice for Markel. Dan Markel, may his name be a blessing. Yeah, so thanks for telling us about that. I do not know anything about that, um, but yeah, I think it's a great thing to see the increasing support. There's so many more people talking about this case, and not gonna keep quiet about it until justice is served. Jay Eats is asking, once Don is convicted, do I think Wendy will flee? I think there's a good chance. They better have those arrest warrants ready to go. I mean, she could be arrested during trial when she's up there. The sooner the better is all I can tell you. Okay, Dr. Cancel is saying, my guess is that Wendy threw up because Charlie told her something that made her anxious about getting caught. So Sigfredo took his friend along, Luis. Sigfredo was supposed to go along. Yeah, I don't think they knew about Sigfredo going along. I think what probably made her throw up was something significant to scare her, like what you're saying. But I think it was probably the fact that Charlie probably told her, "Are you aware of the fact that the hitman's vehicle is under surveillance? They got they know the identity of the vehicle, and it was a rental car, so they're going to be able to trace it back to the guy we hired." I think that probably freaked her out. So because that came out within weeks of the murder, right? So that coincides better with her freaking out about something. So it wasn't that fact that she was the loss of Dan Markel. She was celebrating that. So there was something that was putting a fear of arrest in her mind. Yes, I do have a cold. So it's been it's been hot and muggy here in New York City this week, and then going down all these cold buildings and then hot streets is got me snagged with that. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see. Just me dancing saying, do you think Wendy's watching all these videos about herself in the case? I don't know. I don't really want to guess at that because I think it's I don't think she can handle that from I mean, on one hand you could think she's paranoid and wants to know how close she could be getting to being arrested. On the other hand, I think my guess is that she's not looking at any of it. She just wants to constantly listen to her sounding board, and sole source information is John Lauro. And so far it's worked. Keep in mind, my guesstimate is she's probably paid over $200,000 to John Lauro, and all that money won't matter is not going to be well spent when you can think of the fact that she's going to get arrested, and then she'll have to come up with another 1.5 million or something like that. So, in any event, Leanne Hernandez saying, "How long do you think the trial will last?" I think it's going to last probably uh, the same, or maybe even a little bit shorter than Charlie's. I think the voir dire, it will be shorter than last time. Remember, they had those that 3-ring circus out of New York City here, where they came down and had guys coming and going out of that courtroom. Is really the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So I think, and most attorneys are not the kind that really delve into the nitty gritty type of issues of a jury selection. They just want, from what I've seen, most attorneys just want to get it over with, including trial attorneys. So, but I think in this particular case, it'll be probably 2.5 days is what I'm thinking they could get through this. I do have a law office in Texas, McKinney, Texas. Somebody's question there. Okay. Another question on Wendy from Janet. Is anyone else concerned about Wendy skipping town while the focus on Donna's trial? I can see her testifying, walking on the courtroom and taking off, especially in the timing of Donna's arrest. Yeah, I think the thing of it though is like she's got the kids, so she's going to take the kids out of the country with her. I mean, that's a real Achilles heel for her. I don't think the kids are going to sit there and go like 14, 15. Mom, we're not going to Vietnam. Mom, we're not going to, you know, we're not going to Uzbekistan or wherever she wants to go. So I think that'd be the real thing that would prevent her from leaving. But she may just wind up and leave the kids behind, like Don and Harvey are willing to do, right? Don and Harvey going to Vietnam. You think they would ever seen these kids again? No. That's how much they valued their freedom, ability to escape justice. Okay, Jennifer is asking, do I think Wendy will finally be charged? If so, when? Okay, this is the whole point of contention why I even agreed to do a podcast at my brother's urging, because I thought it was just so bizarre, this case and fact pattern, and they had all this evidence that you could actually see that's there in Florida. I've not seen that before because there's sunshine laws. Like in a normal state, though, the states I practice, you don't get to see the prosecutor's files. So they basically can just bury a case and you never know why the case never made it to trial. Here in Florida, though, you can actually see all the video evidence, a lot of the police reports, stuff like that, and then talk about it and form your own conclusions about whether the law enforcement and prosecutors are doing the right thing or not. So, in any event, I think it's going to happen this year. I've said that, and more people are saying for it. And I would say even like somebody that's there in Tallahassee as a defense attorney, Daniel Webster, has even said that she's going to be arrested real soon. So I think it's just a matter of time. I know Patty Playhouse said she heard something about when she asked Jack Campbell himself when he's going to be prosecuted. He mentioned something to the effect of, "Yeah, Georgia's working on it." So there you have it. I think until it actually happens, there's a lot of people are thinking, well, if it hasn't happened in 10 years, and that's what it really irks me too when people say like, well, she hasn't been charged yet, and why would they wait this long? And so that's a sign they're not going to charge her. But the outcry from the public wasn't there in the years past like it is now, and so it's the pressure's on, and Jack Campbell is not going to have a legacy of cowardice, of not standing up to a murderous Florida Adelson family. So he's late to the party, but he's going to deliver, and he's going to look at as, I think the delays will be forgotten about, and in the public's eyes, they're going to look at him as being the kind of guy that, you know what, I did the kind of thing that Willie Meigs never would do. So he's stepped out of his own shell now. He's becoming um, the a pillar in the legal community and a guy that's not going to let politics affect his charging decisions. Okay, Sonny M is saying, do I think that Katie is way of privilege with Tara Kawasa testified. Adelson's wanted to pay for Katie's defense, to give money to her brother, Francis Magbanua. They're both witnesses. Yeah, I think that definitely has something to do with money. And I've said that before early on. I thought there's something really shady going on. Now, granted, she may have come across some big dollars from some embezzlement scam that her sister was involved in. But I think the mere fact that maybe Donna Adelson is willing to call these people up and say, hey, we're willing to help funnel money to your defense. I mean, who would do that unless you're part of the conspiracy, right? So in that case, I think it's very relevant. And I would hope that Turquoise does the right thing and cooperates. Okay, do you ever wonder why Donna picked Vietnam or the rest are risky choices? The rest of choices too risky to Americans. Okay, first of all, I don't think it was Donna's idea. I think it was Charlie's idea. And Charlie had contacts over there. He's been in Vietnam before. So I think Charlie was the one looking at it from the standpoint of being, this is a good place. You can live very relatively cheaply. You have your millions of dollars at your disposal. You'll be able to live in exorbitant luxury over there. And while they don't have an extradition treaty with the United States, they do extradite people back from Vietnam, but the American government has to give inducements and incentives to have that be accomplished, and it takes some years to do that. But I think in Charlie's situation, for his parents and whatnot, I think if they set up a dentist practice and they bribe the right politicians, they pretty much would be able to stay over there for life and not worry about it. And it is a very modern, beautiful city that a lot of people like to go just to visit as Americans. So that you have a large expat community there. Keep in mind that's where we had a lot of soldiers die in the Vietnam War and whatnot. So America's had a lot of ties to Vietnam in the past 50, 60 years. So I think that their economy is stronger. There's a lot of companies making products. Look how many things now are made in China, not made in China anymore, but they're made in Vietnam. And so yeah, it has more of a robust, thriving economy. So there's a lot of stuff going for it. And it's got pretty decent weather from what I understand. And John has also talked about how a lot of pilots go there and retire and whatnot, and they enjoy their life. In fact, I had somebody from this. I'm thinking about it, there's somebody, some wealthy business guy that called me up some months ago, and he was wrapping up his affairs, and he was going to Vietnam. So if you are listening, I did ask you to report back to me and tell me what you thought of it. But from all reports I'm hearing, it's a decent place to be. Anna Marie, Murray, you're asking, what do I think of how Donna behaved? Well, which time and when? If you're talking about the court thing, how she's evolved, think about how she first acted, throwing temper tantrums, acting like she wasn't getting her way and was going to throw a hissy fit in court, and she was trying to take control of the courtroom. And now she's acting all friendly and nice and smiling at the judge. And anyway, the whole thing about the judge asked her what's her mascot of her high school, and she couldn't remember. I mean, this probably was a credible answer, but anyway, the judge didn't think so. He said something like, that's sort of like burned in your memory. Why wouldn't you remember that? But you once in a while, you may find somebody that doesn't remember it. But anyway, I think he was trying to imply that, hey, I think you don't want to admit it. You're probably lying, but in any event, I think that she's going to have. I think her demeanor is going to be unlikable no matter what she does. I'm not going to predict how she's going to act. I'm just going to predict she's not going to come across as real, authentic, and credible. And if you don't have that as a witness, especially if you're a defendant in a murder case where you're scrutinized even more than you are in any other kind of case, your behavior, your body language, your tone, the way you carry yourself. Think about the way Charlie was sitting there a lot of times like this, just looking like he was sort of had this thing wrapped up in the bag. It's like, all right, can we roll this up and get home now? I'm ready to get on with my life. I mean, that was his whole flippant attitude about the whole thing, right? So, so in any event, I can see Donna having more of a angry personality in this case, and that's why I think the they ought to push your buttons as a prosecutor. I'm gonna push buttons on the defendant, get them ticked off. If you can get a defendant angry, especially on a murder case of violence, you're doing good as a prosecutor. And I don't think it's going to take much effort to push them buttons. Okay, Kelly O'Brien. You're saying, I think a major motivation for the Adelsons was that Wendy might have lost her law license. In my opinion, she wanted to be single and date, and they were with Donna all the time, the boys. Yeah. I've said that if you look at my factors for why I think indicators of Wendy's involvement in the murder, that's like one of the top 10 things or first 10 things I'll mention because I'd not heard that before. And to me, I'm telling you, if somebody's threatening your law license like Dan was, saying that basically there was her behavior in the court litigation proceedings, the way she's hiding assets, called into question her ability to practice law and teach other students in the fact as a faculty member of the FSU Law School, that would be like a huge thing to like strike fear into Wendy's life. And that's why I think she was so desperate to make this thing happen. And I think that's why I think her law license and the fact that Dan could have gotten her fired. Keep in mind, I talked to somebody that works at Florida State. And the dean's office said, yeah, if Dan wanted her fired, she would have been fired. So Dan could have had her fired actually before she decided to murder him. And so if that's the case, that's the kind of control Dan had over her career. Keep in mind, she also, Dan was a full-time tenured professor. She wasn't. She was just like an ad hoc term at-will contract employee and could be fired for any reason, any cause. And as I understand, she only taught one course. So it wasn't even like she was a part-time professor. I mean, she was like basically sort of just like a one-trick pony there at the law school and this taught about immigration. I mean, most attorneys don't really want to know about immigration in law school. That's a real subspecialty. Okay, I'll take this one on here. Ashes to ashes, you're saying, oh, you're all justice for Dan, Markel. That's good. But your question is, why did Dan just agree to move down to Miami? Well, first of all, Dan did try to get down to Miami. He actually he was there on a trial basis for a year as a professor, and Wendy as well. And he was not given the job at the end of that period. So he had already tried to be a professor down there. And granted, there's other law schools around the general area, but he already had the job he wanted at Florida State. And why would he agree to move down there to South Florida? Because that's where the Adelsons want him to be. That's where Donna wants him to be. So I mean, it's in the best court decisions are made in what's in the best interest of the children, not what's best in the best interest of the grandparents, i.e. Donna Adelson. So the best interest of the kids was where they had stability and structure. Both of them had jobs there. It's more of a dog eat dog kind of market in Miami. And if he wants to be a professor, he already tried it at Miami. Maybe he doesn't want to go to UCF or some of these other places. I don't even know what they have for law schools around that area, but I'm sure there's some other ones within, a traffic commute from hell and that kind of stuff. But he's not from there. I mean, he's from Canada, and a lot of Canadians love to go visit the South Florida area, but they don't want to visiting and living there two completely different things. So I could flip that back on you and say, well, why didn't Wendy just go ahead and trick him into agreeing to move down there and then divorcing him after the fact? If she would have said, look, we're moving to Florida, you get a job there, I don't care how much you hate the job. If we don't move to near my parents, I'm divorcing you. I totally believe he would have done that because to salvage the family, but she didn't want to do that. It was all about scorched earth and dagger through the heart kind of tactics. The Pearl Harbor tactics, as Dan called it. Excuse me a second. Losing my voice here. Sorry. Okay, CBC, you're asking, you don't think Katie could testify again as lies are hard to remember so correctly. Do you agree? How should the state deal with her? Well, I think they need her. I think she's critical. I said that before trial. Think of those other attorneys that said no, they could never call her. Their whole case would go sidetracked and then lose the case. If they called Katie as a witness, she'd become a circus sideshow and all that kind of stuff. And that wasn't my experience at all, how you deal with this kind of stuff. What you do as a prosecutor is you get to the truth, okay? No matter how many times a witness has lied, if they absolutely come clean at some point and you got truthful nuggets to bring out, think about the fact that what was really a signature earmark kind of evidence that Katie brought out, and that had to do with the moldy money. And that coincided with Donna going to drive by Charlie's house. Keep in mind, Dan Markel was shot many hours before that day. And what are they hanging around 9 o'clock at night in Miami waiting for Charlie to get home? Right? It was a money drop. And that's what makes sense to the jury. And Katie talks about the moldy money, and moldy money makes sense from the time before in early June, where Donna was probably paranoid and wanting to watch the money of any of her DNA. So all this kind of stuff all gels and syncs together. So in any event, I do think Katie, maybe I think over time she'll be less scared to testify the truth. But despite her limitations as a witness and the fact that we thought we'd get a lot more out of her, I think she was very much critical to show that she's not the kind of person that could lord this kind of power where Charlie that is making himself out to be some kind of innocent baby seal. And she's a big bully that's able to control and manipulate him. So no, it's the other way around. She is not, I should say she's not a baby seal, but no, she's very much calculated, and she did it for money and greed and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, she's sentenced to life without parole, just like Charlie. So they're both very bad and evil for what they did. But that's what you got to do as a prosecutor. You got to make a deal with the devil sometimes, as they say, to get to the truth. In this case, though, she's not going to have a deal laid out ahead of time. What the prosecutor could do is like see how she testifies through this and any other Adelson trials, and then assess a value to ask for a reduction of sentence after it's all said and done. Okay, let's see. We got yeah. I'm just trying to tell you guys what I have from my trial experience, because it did irk me, and I see people talking about this kind of stuff. That it's one thing. I mean, there's people that talk about these cases that aren't attorneys, and they, it's obvious that they aren't, but they have some you know interesting things to say, some thoughts and opinions, and common sense, and good personalities that make for good viewing. But I would say that what really gets me is that when you have attorneys getting on these channels and they have no business talking about stuff, and they talk about it as if they do have experience when they don't, and then especially when they're making it sound like you don't have enough evidence to go against the Adelsons. So that's why I thought it's a matter of standing up for the Markells and breaking that defeatist, weak and pathetic attitude. Something about a Porsche tire. Yeah, I saw something here. I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with anything here. Maybe you guys are talking about another case. Law and Lit says the defense wants to suppose Isom. Any thoughts? Yeah, I did see that. Thanks for bringing that up. I think that having Isom there is something that is surprising. The fact they haven't done more depositions and whatnot. And keep in mind, doing the deposition, if they do it in front of Charlie, then in front of Donna, then if something would happen to Isom, he can't make it a trial, then his testimony could be admitted that way. So I do think that there could be a benefit for the state of him being deposed, but I don't know. I don't think they don't have a workable, winnable strategy. So I don't know what they're driving at with Isom, and what you think there'd be a lot of other witnesses they could get information from that has not been brought out yet. Isom, keep in mind, he interviewed Donna for off and on for a period of 5 hours. It wasn't on an interrogation; it was only an interview, and so I think that maybe what they might try to do is just have him deposed. So in case they do, in case he just calls us as a witness for the state, they have some kind of stuff they can use to try to attack him with or whatnot. But it's not going to matter because, like I said, the evidence against Donna is overwhelming enough. ISM is not going to be a variance on that, on whether she gets convicted or not. Oh, Nancy's asking, do I think Dan's boys will be at the trial, being that Donna, Charlie, and their mother, Wendy, will be there? Well, but they're not going to be able to see Charlie, and Charlie's going to be a visitor as a prisoner from another state, so he's not going to have any visiting hours. Donna could have visiting hours, but I don't think the boys have seen her since she's been arrested. There's not been any indicators from other folks that have talked about this on YouTube. And then Wendy definitely hasn't been there at all except to testify. So Tattletale is saying, who do I think will testify? I think it's going to be a lot of the same lines that we heard before, but there's going to be some additional evidence like we saw with Rob Adelson and some of these other attorneys talking about how they, excuse me, talking about how the lawyers try to circle the wagons around the hitman's lawyers. I mean, that's something that's very, very key because think about it. Somebody murders a family member of yours, and when they arrest the hitman, they were able to trace it to the vehicle that was used to drive up there to kill Dan Markel. And you're gonna inquire about whether you can pay for their lawyers or not. That's never happened to innocent people, and so that's something only guilty people do. So if they want to bring that out, that's a good novel area to target rich environment. So go for it. Okay, here's a comment from CBC. I'd love to figure out what Georgia has to expose and what we don't know about. Yeah, there's going to be some other stuff we don't know about. There's going to be maybe another email or text or something that's a real dagger for one of these Adelsons. Keep in mind, the last trial, the real surprise was how Wendy was asking Dan about whether he was going to see the boys on that evening between the 14th and 18th, kind of thing of the week of his murder. So that was very telling. Yeah, so Lenny, you're agreeing that Charlie must have told her something that freaked her out. Yeah, so I think if there's any vomit, there's truth to that. It had to do with her getting freaked out. Totally agree with that. All right, Anna Marie's saying, yes, I'm in New York City, Manhattan. Get a slice of pizza and a cannoli. You'll feel much better. Well, doing all this walking around in this muggy weather and then the cold air conditioning, it's thrown me off here. Yeah, it's amazing. Isn't it amazing they thought they could get away with this? I think that's really the shocker of this whole thing, but um, it's almost like so great to see that it's not going to last forever. Okay, Mama B's asking, once convicted, will Donna be in the same prison as Katie? No, they tend to keep out co-conspirators, convicted co-murderers. They don't put them in the same area at all. So, Ann Brow, you asking if I'd like to be a judge? There's good and bad points to it. So, I've not really ever pursued that. They once looked at making me a military appellate judge, and I was like, no, I don't think I want to handle that. I like the trial level stuff because you can get stuff resolved better and not have to deal with appellate issues. I like having a chance to fix stuff right from the get go rather than dealing with who dropped the ball on this, that, and the other. Colleen is saying, unlikely, I know, but let's say Don is found not guilty. Do I think the prosecutors will not go after Wendy? That's sort of the way prosecutors tend to think. So from that standpoint, I would say yes. If they don't, if they have a stronger case against Wendy or equally as strong, then that could be a reason that they wouldn't go against Wendy because they don't have the confidence in their capability. So I would say that this is would that sort of be the mindset of the office where they can get their confidence easily rattled per se? Then I would say yes, um, but then again, it's sort of the same mindset that they never went after the death penalty on any of the Adelsons because the hitman or Katie got it. So in my mind, it's like I think the Adelsons are worse than the actual trigger puller, right? That's the way I look at it. Some people may not, but would Sigfredo ever actually have killed anybody in his lifetime, but for the Adelson's influence? Maybe, let's say, but in this particular case, but for Adelson's, Sigfredo and Luis Rivera would not have driven up there and killed him. So I sort of look at it as a but-for test, and even if you lose one, go after them all that way. If you got death penalty option, use that to try to smoke them out, and then maybe cop a plea better. Yeah, another question about if Donna's found not guilty. Okay, she's not going to be found not guilty, so you know she's more likely to be abducted by aliens between now and trial. So I'm not going to entertain that idea, but I've talked about it with y'all. Cat Love Dreamin' Peach is saying, do you still have the same confidence that Wendy will get arrested? Yeah, I mean, more and more people are talking about it. I remember 6 months ago, I was laughed at and ridiculed, saying that she wasn't ever going to be prosecuted and all that kind of stuff. And I don't have any inside track to know that she will be for sure. I'm just saying there's more and more people with knowledge there in the Tallahassee legal community that's saying it's going to happen. And so I just I think they have no excuses. And I think all you guys supporting this effort is making a difference. I really do. And I'm sure the state attorney's office know there's all these channels talking about this case, and we're following the case, and that kind of stuff really put some pressure on prosecutors to do the right thing, right? We're not asking them to do the wrong thing. We're just asking them to do the right thing. So Wesley John Holmes, you're asking about what kind of testimony will the state be looking for from Charlie? With Charlie, that would be the same kind of testimony that Wendy gave, except he's a convicted felon at this point for the murder and being a co-conspirator with them and a co-principal to the murder of Dan Markel. So I think what they want to do is have him to excuse me. I think they want to use him to maybe set the scene on this absolutely hilariously ridiculous story about how he was, how he wants to use the word is extorted, and nobody's going to buy that. And it makes think about it. The more you have Charlie testify, the more that makes Donna look bad. The more you have Wendy looks on the witness stand, the more that makes Donna look bad. And then you have Rob, the honorable brother up north, that's coming down there to talk about how mean and nasty and whatnot this family can be, and how they acted so weird and wouldn't talk about the issues with the murder of Dan Markel. So how they acted totally guilty, and it's not going to take much. It takes there's a little bit of evidence out there that seems to indicate Donna's completely into this thing as well, and so there's no doubt in my mind they're all going to be convicted if they get the trial going here. So I really think Wendy will be arrested really soon after Donna's convicted. Hopefully before, but Carl, do you think Donna will testify? Yeah, I mean, unless she gets spooked out, but I can see her thinking she's going to own the courtroom just like Charlie. I think Charlie got that from his mom. And so I think that's something that's not going be something she can avoid, because if she's wanting to say it wasn't her, and she's gonna think she can get credibility with the jury and they're going to like her. I mean, I think she really thinks that. And so, yeah, I see her testifying. And if she doesn't, the jury's not going to have anything to counter what the state's presenting. So I really think she's going to pretty much be in the situation Charlie was. There's not going to really be anybody to testify that to indicate she was somehow innocent in any of this. So, yeah, 10 years, Dixie Doodle. You're saying 10 years is ridiculous. Yes, it is. But that's what I'm saying. Jack Campbell is unleashing his prosecutors, Georgia and Sarah, and they're going to clean house on these Adelsons in Florida. So there's no doubt in my mind they're going to do the right thing. Yeah, it is a travesty, but you know what? 2 down and 2 more to go after Charlie and Donna are convicted. Matilda is asking, can you explain the Alford plea and what it would mean if Wendy were to use it? Alford plea is a generic term that is used in criminal defense arena to mean that if the jurisdictions allows it, the defendant can basically not admit to guilt, but yet in essence, the court finds you guilty anyway. You almost like you stipulate the fact that there's enough evidence to find you guilty. So I've had that many times happen where it's sort of like a way to get the conviction for that the state wants against the defendant. You are truly, in fact, convicted of the crime. But the defendant, a lot of times, that's like takes the most time to get the client to agree to it, that they are guilty of it. They don't really want to talk about it. So it sort of like cuts to the chase. Hey, are you willing to cut a deal? And if you don't have to fully admit to doing the crime, and you're going to be found guilty anyway, it's sort of like I guess a win-win scenario for the parties. And I can tell you, like in a military court martial, there's no such thing. You cannot have an Alford plea. If you want to plead anything, you're going to get scrutinized by the judge for at least probably a half hour to an hour, asking you to describe your own words why you're guilty of each and every charge. And I think in terms of like Wendy using it, I assume Florida has that as well, but where you could do the Alford plea. But I just don't see Wendy doing this at all. I think she's going to wind up going to knock down, drag out, slug it out. And I think she's going to be like Charlie and Donna, thinking no matter what the evidence is, she's going to be able to think in her mind, I was the one that pulled the trigger. It was somebody else. I'm morally justified. Dan was an evil person, and I have a clear conscience, kind of thing. So I think that's how they really think this thing through. Okay, Albert, you're asking, do I hear about Don Harvey paying for a Vietnam villas? Do you mean villa? I'm not sure if they got a villa, but a villa would be very cheap and affordable for them. Excuse me. Yeah, Doug Farley, that's a good point. If a jury watched Wendy's police interview, she would be convicted for sure. Especially if you watch it more than once, and if you watch the whole thing and see how she acts. There's nobody, I think, understanding the way people can act differently upon tragic news, stuff like that. But when they play out all the hatred she had for Dan Markel, and you think a jury's going to think back to the book, if you highlight as a prosecutor, especially, think back to all that hatred in her book. And then you think about the hatred to the current living Markels for the last 10 years. And the boys have pretty much been denied any connection to the wonderful Markel family in Canada. They've never been to the gravesite. Visitation is an absolute farce. It's a complete, ongoing crime against children thing. It's just so mean and evil. The fact that not only did these boys, lose their dad, but then they don't have their dad's parents there to love them and have a life with them and try to get to meet their other nieces and nephews up there. Excuse me, their other cousins up there and whatnot. So it's just like a complete obliteration of the Markel family tree, and Adelsons are proud of that and think it's justified. Excuse me. I'm gonna have to wind it up here pretty soon. Yeah, I guess there are some questions about a judge. I don't think I want to be a judge just yet. At least a judge, you can call out attorneys who are doing a bunch of shady stuff. All right, let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the kids in a boarding school. Okay, let's see. Dinah's saying, when George asked Donna on the stand, why do you have a one-way ticket to Vietnam? What do you think Donna will say? I don't want to predict it because I don't want to help give the defense any ideas in case they're listening or something like that. But I can tell you that it doesn't matter what she says. It's one of those deals that the jury's going to see right through it. So whatever kind of story she wants to fabricate is going to come across as totally that fabrication. She'll say it like she believes it. The problem is nobody else in the courthouse will believe it. So that's the thing. And if I think these lawyers know that when you got a client that's so guilty, why even try to coach them to try to tell the truth, right? Because they're going to crash and burn in the courtroom, and they're not going to admit it to you anyway that they're guilty. So, all right, just get up there and make an utter fool out of yourself, and I'll make your closing argument, your opening statement, and try not to laugh. But in any event, they can cash their checks and walk home. And Donna's going to be the one facing prison time and doing prison time. Yeah, I don't know what kind of medication Donna would be on for ulcers. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think Donna. There could be an issue with Wendy fleeing the country. I don't know. Yeah, Jill is saying Donna's been given enough happy pills plus smile on her face. Court, they do give sedation to inmates. Yeah, I think they do give stuff there in Tallahassee to the inmates there in Leon County. So, okay, Lou, you're saying you think that Don and Harvey had been to Vietnam before. I'm not tracking that. If I'm wrong on that, maybe somebody else could jump in, but I don't recall them as being the ones to go over there to Vietnam. I think they've been over to maybe Southeast Asia or Southwest Asia. I just don't remember if that was one of the countries they went to. Well, Tiffany, you're saying, can a lawyer give clinic Xanax? Because if it's a legal prescription, does the court find out? I'm almost positive Troy was on some for his trial. Yeah, I think he might have been on prescription just from the actual jail nurse having a prescription called in for him. So I think that's the case. All right, I got to speed up here. I'm like a half hour behind questions. Sorry, folks. I didn't realize you guys had that many questions. All right, let me jump ahead here. Looking for the red emojis. The two is saying, Carl, do you think maybe Wendy's plan was to find Dan in his vehicle and shut the garage door, overhead door, and hence drive down Trescott? Yeah, I don't know that I think that she was willing to do whatever it takes to see what happened. And if she saw him in his garage door and him like slumped over, I think she'd have done exactly that. Or she could have tried to play the heroine and go in there and try to like resuscitate him, call 911, and really try to like make it look like she's innocent that way. But I think she didn't know exactly what to expect. That's why her curiosity got the best of her. And I think she knew that they're going to kill him, probably kill him in his house or near his house, close to his house. So I just think that I'd heard maybe she could have had a garage door opener still and to get access to kids or something like that. So we don't know for sure, but and hopefully the police have that kind of information. But that is possible. It is possible. I'm not the first one who thought that. Other folks commented on that or sent me emails or whatever. So in any event, I'm not claiming credit for that, but I think it's a possibility. All right, now I'm trying to scroll ahead here. Somebody asked how many cars drove up the crime scene. I mean, they had at one point, I think, probably like 10 or 12 law enforcement vehicles there, including crime scene evidence processing vans and stuff like that. All right, so I got to get vitamin C. All right, thank you. Okay, you're saying you expect the Spanish Inquisition. Surely Markel boys at 14, 15 have challenged their mothers to why Uncle Charlie was convicted and Grandma Donna has been arrested. By now they must know about Katie, Luis, and Alfredo. Yeah, but I think on the other hand, it's like you have no idea the ability of kids to be brainwashed by people they live with. I mean, you have no clue. It is so overwhelming the amount of control. The especially primary care providers for kids, how much control they can have over kids, and so do I think the kids get teased and stuff like that? I've heard that the kids are getting teased by that, but you know, if all the if Don and Harvey are telling them it's corrupt police up there and they're trying to frame us and this and that and the other, and they got them, they can easily brainwash them and believing that law enforcement you can't trust. This is just an evil witch hunt by Tallahassee law enforcement and all that kind of stuff. They just don't like us because we're Jewish or whatever else they want to say. All that's gonna probably be something where the boys believe it. So that's what's sad is that it'll take many years. They may not ever totally be deprogrammed, right? I mean, when they turn 18, are they going to be like, hey, let's go run up to Canada, let's see our grandpa and grandpa up there? Maybe not, because I'm sure they're told tons of lies about them. So that's what I've seen from my lifetime of handling cases. So it's really sad, but I think someday the kids will wake up, and hopefully it'll be sooner than later. Let me try to scroll up here. All right, you're talking about shortcut the video. Yeah, there's no way. Think about Wendy's testimony, how she said there's all these different places, all these different testimonies she said about whether she would draw on Trescott or not, whether she first started to make the turn on Trescott, so it was blocked off there. It was not blocked off at the end of Trescott. It was blocked off, one house down from Dan's place, and that's all it was. Thanks for the suggestions for how to beat this cold or wherever I got. Yeah, Ruth Markel did get a visit with boys recently, but 45 minutes supervised? You call that really a visit? Where everything is really under strict control measures, the kind that Donna would never tolerate on herself, despite the fact that her calling Dan stupid in front of the boys, calling Dan stupid in front of the boys. Yeah, so their golden years will be spent in prison. Yes, I believe so. Harvey and Donna. Dr. Reinhold, or is he Reinhardt? Sorry. I got the wrong one here. Sorry. Already paid for half the murder, should be arrested. Yeah, there's evidence against Charlie. I've already covered that a couple months ago, where that was the title of it. Basically, Harvey's involvement, and so yeah, I think he's going to be coming down the pike as well. All right, now I can back up. All right, let's see. Okay, CBC, you're asking about, do you think they'll recall Louis, Luis Rivera to say the lady he saw was young or old, when Wendy or Donna? I don't think that I don't think Wendy or Donna were over there by Dan's house the day before the murder. Was a day before, day or two before the murder. It could have been somebody else just walking their dog or whatever. So I don't think that was her. I think from the timeline, I don't think Wendy wanted to show up at the house there beforehand to meet the guys, or would have been there even if she didn't know the guys were coming by. The him were coming by. I think that's just maybe something Sigfredo said to say, "Oh, there she is. She's the one. You see, we're doing it. We're doing it for her. Trying to incentivize, go through with it." All right, I'm about to lose my voice here, so I'm going to sign off. But thank you all for your coverage of following the case. And I'll probably do another live stream on Sunday night with John, and be back home then in the studio. So thank you for doing all you can for the Markells here on the what we found out tonight was the 10th anniversary of some Jewish holiday, and so I think we'll have more coverage on this as well, assuming I get back safe and whatnot. So thanks for your continued coverage, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.